They found his teeth before they found his name. The city was wide awake, yet the alley slept in darkness. Blood slicked the cracked pavement, pooling beneath the last pale streetlight. Rain fell, soft but cold, spattering the crimson with broken reflections. Mason Hayes had been running since midnight, his breath a thin mist vanishing with every panicked exhale. He wasn't the type to beg, but his voice splintered in the shadows. On the ground beside the gutter, a cell phone glowed with a final message unsent. Someone had torn the watch from his wrist, leaving a red welt behind. The air was thick with copper and smoke. A silhouette leaned over him, face hidden by the brim of a cheap ball cap, fists still trembling. Mason whispered, "Tell my sister I didn't talk," but the only answer was the heavy silence of the city. Sirens howled in the distance, growing closer, bouncing off brick and glass. Footsteps retreated, boots slipping on slick concrete, leaving prints to be washed away by the rain. A stray dog nosed Mason's discarded wallet, sniffing at the photograph of a little girl. The city took everything and gave nothing back. Somewhere a door slammed, someone's laughter broke the night, but here in this alley, all that was left was the truth written in blood. By the time the first cop arrived, Mason's eyes had already glazed over, staring into the halo of the broken streetlight above. Detective John Carter had seen the aftermath of too many nights like this. But nothing about Mason Hayes made sense. He crouched low, rain pelting his suit, flashlight flicking over the wallet and blood. "Victim's teeth are broken. Looks like he fought back," Carter muttered, his voice clipped and cold. Rookie cop Lisa Grant stood behind him, eyes wide. She asked, "Was this a message?" Carter didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled the cell phone from the puddle, thumb running over the blurred unsent text. The message was addressed to Anna Hayes, Mason's sister. Carter shook his head. "Nobody wins down here," he said, voice carrying more weight than the words themselves. Crime scene tape fluttered as more cops closed in, boots splashing in the gutter. Lisa stared at the photo of the little girl in Mason's wallet, her lips tightening. "Who does this?" she whispered, voice trembling. Carter stood, rainwater dripping from his jaw, eyes hard as steel. "Someone who wanted the world to know," he replied, stepping away from the body, hands clenched. The city's shadows closed around them, the storm hiding secrets only the dead could speak. The first flashbulb popped, freezing Carter's face in a stark frame. Tonight, another name would be written in the city's book of ghosts. Anna Hayes woke to the sound of her phone buzzing on the nightstand, the harsh blue glow cutting through her apartment's early morning dimness. She reached for it with shaking hands, her pulse racing. The screen showed a missed call from Mason. Her brother never called at this hour. As she listened to his last voicemail, Anna's breath hitched, tears stinging her eyes. "Anna, don't come looking. Don't trust anyone." "I love you," Mason's voice cracked, the message dissolving into static. Anna pressed the phone to her chest, heart pounding. She stumbled to the window, looking out over rain-slicked rooftops, city lights blurred by the storm. Shadows moved on the street below. She saw two detectives duck under police tape across the alley. Fear gripped her, cold and certain. Anna remembered Mason teaching her how to fight back, how to keep secrets. Now all she could do was listen to the rain and wish for another chance. She whispered, "I won't let them bury you, Mason. I promise." Lightning flashed, illuminating her reflection, haunted eyes, jaw set in defiance. The city didn't care about her promises. But Anna had learned to survive. Somewhere else, a man watched the city from a cheap motel window, cigarette burning down to the filter. Victor Russo, age 47, his face lined by hard years and harder choices, scanned the rain with cold eyes. He held a burner phone, thumb hovering above the keypad, tension in every knuckle. The television flickered behind him, muted news cycling through city crime statistics. Victor's phone buzzed. One short message, "It's done." He exhaled smoke, jaw tightening. "Nobody leaves clean," Victor muttered to the empty room. He pocketed the phone, snuffed out the cigarette, and studied his own reflection. a man carved by regret, eyes hollowed by secrets. He shrugged on a battered leather jacket, gun visible at his belt, and left the motel room behind, stepping into the storm. The hallway lights flickered, casting his shadow long and jagged. Victor disappeared into the wet, empty street, the motel door clicking shut behind him, a sound swallowed by thunder. By dawn, the city wore a fresh mask. Cleaners hosed blood off the alley. Detective Carter's shoes sloshed in shallow puddles, his face drawn tight with exhaustion. Lisa Grant bagged the evidence, hands trembling as she snapped on gloves. Anna, wrapped in a worn gray coat, stood just beyond the tape, rain drenching her hair, eyes fixed on the ground. Carter approached, voice low. "You shouldn't be here." Anna didn't flinch. "He was my brother," she said, every word a challenge. Carter hesitated, then handed her Mason's watch, the strap cracked and stained. Anna closed her fingers around it, knuckles white. "Find out who did this," she demanded. Carter nodded, silent. The alley felt smaller, closing in. Above them, the city's heartbeat quickened, sirens fading into the rain. Anna stepped into the alley's edge, eyes hard as stone, vowing the truth would not drown here. In the storm's hush, the promise lingered, a spark refusing to die. Anna sat in the back of the family's old sedan, the engine idling, fog clouding the windows. She stared at Mason's watch, thumbing the cracked face, remembering how he once snuck her out of trouble with nothing but a smile and a lie. Her father, Raymond Hayes, white male, 61, stoic and silent, sat in the front seat, his jaw tight, eyes fixed on the rain-slick street outside. He didn't look back, but his grip on the steering wheel was iron. Anna spoke. "Dad, this isn't on Mason. He was clean." Raymond's voice was rough as gravel. "No one's clean, Anna. Not in this city." She bit back tears, anger simmering beneath her grief. She remembered Mason teaching her to fight with words and fists, but grief was something you couldn't punch your way through. Anna wiped condensation from the window, watching police cruisers flash by. Raymond finally glanced at her in the mirror. "Stay out of it, Anna. Let the cops do their job." She shook her head, knuckles white around the watch. "They won't, not for us." Raymond didn't argue. He just drove, headlights cutting through the gloom. Anna's resolve hardened. If the city wanted silence, it would have to fight her for it. Detective Carter's office was a shrine to old cases and broken promises. Faded crime scene photos wallpapered the corkboard, corners curled and yellowed. Carter slumped at his desk, suit rumpled, eyes bloodshot from a night with no sleep. Lisa Grant dropped a fresh stack of files beside him. "You really think Hayes was clean?" she asked, skepticism edging her tone. Carter ran a hand over his stubble, staring at Mason's case file. "He didn't fit," Carter replied. "No ties, no records, just a name on a list someone wanted erased." Lisa frowned, flipping through the evidence logs. But the message to his sister. "That's not a confession. That's a warning." Carter nodded slowly, piecing it together in his head. The city was full of men like Mason, lost between guilt and innocence, haunted by the wrong choices. Carter felt the ache of too many failures as he pinned Mason's photo to the board. "Let's see who comes looking for him," he said, his voice like broken glass. Outside, thunder cracked. The past was never really past in this place. Victor Russo paced the length of his motel room, old floorboards creaking under heavy steps. The burner phone buzzed on the nightstand. He stared at it, jaw set, then answered in a voice cold as the rain outside. "It's done," he said, keeping his words short. On the other end, a distorted voice replied, "Keep your head down, Russo. Eyes everywhere tonight." Victor's gaze drifted to the mirror, tracing the new lines in his weathered face. Regret flickered in his eyes, quickly buried. He poured 2 fingers of cheap whiskey, hands steady, shoulders hunched. The weight of old debts pressed down, the ghosts of his past pressing in. He remembered a different life, a family, a promise broken. Outside, sirens wailed, the city's lullaby. Victor set the glass down, gripping the edge of the sink, knuckles white. "Nobody leaves clean," he whispered again, voice trembling just for a moment. The storm raged on, but Victor's heart was quieter, colder, more dangerous than ever. Anna walked the halls of her childhood apartment, every creak and shadow, a memory of Mason's laughter and their mother's whispered warnings. She stopped in front of a photo on the wall. Her, Mason, and their father, years ago, before secrets stained their smiles. Anna's mother, Evelyn Hayes, white female, 58, weary but gentle, watched her daughter with worried eyes. "He always tried to protect you," Evelyn said softly. Anna brushed a tear from her cheek. "He shouldn't have had to." Evelyn gathered Anna into her arms, the embrace awkward but fierce. "You're all I have left," she whispered. Anna's resolve hardened beneath her grief. "I won't let them bury him without a fight," she promised. Evelyn nodded, silent tears glinting in the low light. Thunder rumbled outside, the city alive with secrets. Anna stared out the window, jaw clenched, the promise of vengeance cold and sure. Night fell hard across the city, swallowing the truth with the darkness. Anna stood alone on the rooftop, wind whipping her hair, the skyline bruised by storm clouds and distant sirens. She looked down at the city, her city, Mason's city, knowing its streets ran on blood and silence. She clutched his watch in her fist, the metal cold against her skin. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the determination on her face. Anna spoke aloud to the night. "You took everything. I'm taking it back." Below, headlights traced crooked paths down rain-slick streets. Somewhere her brother's killer moved freely, counting on her silence. Anna smiled, bitter and fierce. She would give the city a story it couldn't bury. The wind roared in her ears. Tomorrow, she would begin. Tonight, she let herself hurt, the ache sharpening her resolve. Anna's footsteps echoed through the hallways of the courthouse, the cold fluorescent lights making everything look more desperate. She carried Mason's watch like a talisman, weaving between lawyers and tired janitors. Her resolve was armor. She found Detective Carter outside a courtroom, talking quietly with Lisa Grant. Carter's gaze locked on Anna, guarded but not unkind. Anna said, "You told me to stay out of it. I can't." Carter's voice was gravel. "This isn't a game. People disappear." Anna's anger boiled. "People disappear because no one fights for them." Lisa shifted, uneasy. Anna pushed a file into Carter's hands. "Mason left notes, names, places. You're missing something." Carter opened the file, expression unreadable. Anna's defiance was raw. "You're the only one who wants to find the truth. Prove me wrong." Carter hesitated, then nodded once. The courthouse felt like a cage. Anna turned away, shoving past a crowd, her pulse thundering in her ears. The system was built to grind people down. Anna was done being ground. Raymond Hayes sat in his darkened living room, television news casting blue shadows on his face. His hand trembled as he held a glass of whiskey. He flipped through old photographs of Mason, birthday parties, soccer games, scraped knees and forced smiles. The house echoed with memories, every corner haunted. Raymond's phone rang, jolting him. He stared at the caller. "Ed?" An unknown number. He answered, voice brittle. "Who is this?" A stranger's voice crackled. "Your son made enemies, Mr. Hayes. Leave it alone or you'll join him." The call ended before Raymond could speak. He dropped the phone, rage and fear wrestling across his face. He grabbed a faded picture of Mason, gripping it until the frame cracked. Raymond stared out the window into the rain, helpless against a world that had taken too much already. He whispered, "I'm sorry, son." Lightning turned the living room into a cold blue ghost world, grief swallowing everything. Victor Russo stepped out into the alley behind the motel, drawn by instinct and paranoia. The storm had eased, but the air still tasted of metal and secrets. He flicked a cigarette into the gutter, scanning the shadows. A figure appeared. A young man in a cheap raincoat, eyes wild, hand shaking around a pistol. Victor didn't flinch. "You lost kid," he said, voice calm. The man's gun wavered. "You were supposed to keep it quiet." Victor shrugged. Nobody keeps anything quiet for long. The kid's hand shook harder. Victor took a step forward, fearless. You shoot me, you end up dead by sunrise. That's the rule. The kid blinked, lower lip trembling. Victor's stare was steel. Walk away, or you'll bleed here. The threat lingered like smoke. The man bolted, vanishing into the night. Victor leaned against the wall, exhaling slow, hands steady. The war in the streets was heating up, and the old rules were burning. Anna searched Mason's apartment, flashlight beam cutting through gloom. The space was small, cluttered with old receipts, worn books, and photos taped to walls. She found a notebook under the mattress, Mason's messy handwriting filling every page, phone numbers, addresses, warnings scrawled in red. Anna flipped through it, heart pounding as she realized he'd been tracking threats for weeks. Footsteps echoed outside. Anna froze, breath shallow. She switched off the light, pressing herself against the wall. The doorknob rattled, then silence. Anna's phone vibrated with a single word: run. She bolted for the fire escape, climbing into the wet night. She moved fast, adrenaline burning away grief. Mason hadn't died for nothing. He'd been hunting the truth. Now, so was she. Detective Carter returned to his office, Mason's notes weighing heavy in his hand. He pinned the latest findings to his board, names of suspects, addresses circled in red, photos of men and women who'd crossed lines. Lisa Grant stood in the doorway, watching him work. You believe her? Lisa asked. Carter didn't turn. I believe something's rotten, and the stink starts at the top. Carter picked up his phone, dialing an old number. We need to talk, he said into the receiver, voice low. Lisa stepped closer. Who was that? Carter looked at her, eyes tired but fierce. An old friend or an old enemy? Tonight, there's no difference. Lightning flashed outside, framing Carter against the board, a lone figure fighting a war he'd already lost once. The case had become a wildfire. No one would escape untouched. Detective Carter sat alone in the dim interrogation room, the clock ticking loudly on peeling paint walls. Across from him, Michael Hayes, 28, white male, Mason's younger brother, leaned back in the chair, arms folded, eyes cold and calculating. Carter slid a photo across the table. Mason, bruised and bleeding. You knew he was in danger, Carter said, voice low but steady. Michael smiled thinly. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. The silence stretched. Carter leaned in. You're the only one who could have warned him, so why didn't you? Michael's face hardened. Because some truths are better left buried. Carter's fingers tapped the table. You're hiding more than just silence. Michael's jaw clenched. Trust breaks families. The weight between them was suffocating. Outside, footsteps echoed. Carter's eyes flicked to the mirror. Someone was watching. The devil was closer than Carter realized, and his betrayal cut deep. Anna confronted Evelyn Hayes in the cramped kitchen, tension crackling in the stale air. The mother's face was pale, eyes rimmed red, but her voice was firm. I did what I had to do. Anna's voice broke with pain and anger. You sent the call. You sealed Mason's fate. Evelyn looked away, guilt heavy on her shoulders. It was either him or the family. Anna's fists clenched. You chose silence over him. The kitchen clock ticked louder, filling the space with unbearable truth. Evelyn's hands trembled as she reached for a teacup, spilling water onto the stained table. I was protecting you, protecting us. Anna's eyes burned. At what cost? Evelyn swallowed hard. Sometimes, love looks like betrayal. The line between protection and ruin blurred, and Anna realized the devil was not just in the streets, but at home. Victor Russo sat behind a poker table in a smoky backroom, cards scattered, eyes sharp beneath a low-brimmed hat. Across from him was Danny Russo, 25, his estranged son, tension slicing through the stale air. Danny's voice was low but fierce. You betrayed me. You left me out to die. Victor's jaw tightened. You chose your own path. Danny slammed his fist down, rattling chips. I was loyal. You made me a target. Victor's eyes darkened. Loyalty doesn't mean blind obedience. A knife's edge between them, years of silence, screaming louder than words. Danny leaned in. You're not my father anymore. Victor didn't flinch. The poker game was a war, and neither was willing to fold. Outside, the city buzzed, unaware of the bloodline tearing itself apart. Lisa Grant traced Mason's steps through his last known contacts, a trail fraying at the edges. In a shadowed bar, she found old friends whispering secrets and lies. One man leaned in, voice low. Mason was sniffing around things he shouldn't. The higher-ups wanted him silenced. Lisa's heart hammered. Who? The man shook his head. Can't say, but it's closer than you think. She left with a warning buzzing in her ear, the city tightening its grip. Back at the precinct, Lisa faced Carter, breathless. It's a setup. They're covering for someone. Carter's eyes were grim. We're all pawns, Lisa, but maybe it's time to start playing for real. They both knew the danger was escalating. One wrong move would cost everything. The betrayal came like a thunderclap. Mason's old crew gathered in a warehouse, tension thick as smoke. Johnny, Knuckles, Malone, 38, burly and grim, slammed a fist on the table. One of us gave Mason up. The room fell silent, eyes darting. Anna stood firm, voice clear and sharp. I know who. Gasps and murmurs filled the air. Carter stepped forward, eyes hard. The son, Michael Hayes, he sold his brother out. The weight of that truth cracked the room open. Betrayal wasn't just a shadow, it was family. Johnny spat on the floor. No one's safe. Outside, sirens screamed closer, the night bleeding chaos. The devil's blade was buried deep, and it was just beginning to twist. The warehouse was thick with tension and gunmetal scent. Anna paced, every step echoing like a heartbeat. Her hands clenched Mason's watch tightly, her last link to the brother she never truly knew. Johnny Knuckles, Malone, broad-shouldered and grim-faced at 38, paced opposite her, fists twitching. We settle this tonight, he growled, voice low and raw. Detective Carter stood close, eyes scanning every shadow, the weight of years pressing down on his shoulders. Anna locked eyes with Michael Hayes, the traitor now exposed, his face a mask of cold defiance. You took everything from us, she hissed. Michael sneered. I did what I had to. The silence shattered when gunfire cracked through the air, echoing off the concrete. Anna dove behind crates, heartbeat hammering. This was no longer about truth or justice, it was survival, and only one side would walk away. Smoke curled from shattered glass and spent casings as the firefight spilled into the alley outside. Anna sprinted through rain-slicked pavement, every breath burning, every step fueled by fury. Behind her, the chaos erupted. Voices screamed, guns rattled, and sirens pierced the night air. She glanced back, heart in her throat, spotting Johnny's heavy silhouette covering their retreat. Keep moving, he barked. Anna's eyes burned with raw pain and determination. We're not finished yet. The city blurred around her, a maze of betrayal and blood. Somewhere, Michael slipped through the chaos, a ghost fading into shadows. Anna's promise echoed louder than the gunfire. She would find him no matter the cost. The night was a battlefield, and Anna was no longer running from the storm. She was becoming it. Raymond Hayes stood frozen on the steps of the church, the sound of muffled prayers rising behind stained glass. His face was a mask of grief and rage, tears tracking dirt-streaked cheeks. The funeral was for Mason, but it felt like a death sentence for the family. As the priest intoned final words, Raymond's voice broke through the silence, raw and bitter. This ends now. The crowd shifted uneasily. Anna stood beside him, eyes burning with fierce resolve, clutching the battered watch tighter. We will not fall, she vowed. Johnny Malone's presence loomed at the back, silent but watchful. Michael Hayes was nowhere to be seen, his betrayal a wound that would not heal. The bloodline was broken, But tonight, revenge would be their binding force. Lightning flashed, framing them in harsh light. The war was far from over. Victor Russo's phone vibrated sharply in the quiet of his car, engine idling under flickering streetlights. His jaw tightened as he read the message. "It's done." He crushed the device in his hand, eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. The war had shifted, and the enemy was closer than ever. Memories of past betrayals and broken promises flooded his mind. He started the car, tires spinning on wet asphalt as he headed into the heart of the city, ready to settle scores that had festered too long. The rain fell harder, drumming a relentless rhythm. Victor's voice was barely a whisper. "No one walks away clean." The night swallowed his taillights as he vanished into the storm, a predator hunting in shadows. The final showdown was set in an abandoned dockyard, fog curling low over rusted containers and shattered crates. Anna moved like a shadow, silent but lethal, eyes sharp and focused. Michael Hayes waited, gun drawn, face a mask of desperation and defiance. "You could have been one of us," Anna said, voice cold steel. Michael sneered. "I did what was necessary." The first shot rang out, shattering the heavy silence. Bullets tore through the fog, echoing off metal. Anna dove behind a container, heart pounding, every sense razor sharp. The fight was more than survival. It was the reckoning of everything lost and betrayed. As dawn threatened the horizon, only one would stand amid the ruins. The city held its breath. Dawn crept slowly over the city skyline, painting the streets with cold light and long shadows. Anna sat alone on a cracked rooftop, rain-damp hair clinging to her face, Mason's watch resting heavy in her palm. The battle was over, but the war inside her raged on. Detective Carter approached silently, his footsteps soft against broken concrete. "You lost a lot," he said quietly. Anna didn't look up. "I lost everything." Her voice was hollow, but fierce. Carter crouched beside her, eyes searching the horizon. Sometimes silence is the loudest scream. Anna clenched her jaw, memories of blood and betrayal flashing behind her eyes. There's no going back. She stood, the weight of the past etched into every line on her face. The city breathed around them, cold, unforgiving. And the silence that followed was a price too high to pay. Raymond Hayes stood before a cracked family photo, his hand trembling as he traced the faces. His wife, his children, a past fractured by lies and loss. Evelyn's whispered apologies still echoed in his mind. He poured himself a drink, the amber liquid catching the dim light. "I thought silence would protect us," he admitted aloud, voice thick with regret. But the silence only bred more pain. He stared out the window at the waking city, knowing some wounds could never heal. Anna's fight had exposed truths best left hidden, and now the family bore the cost. Raymond's eyes closed briefly. "We survive, but we are never the same." The rain began again, tapping a mournful rhythm on the glass, a reminder that some prices were forever. Victor Russo sat in a shadowed corner of a deserted diner, cigarette smoke curling lazily around his head. The war had taken everything, leaving only cold calculations and empty promises. His phone buzzed with another message. No name, no words, just a warning. He crushed the device under his boot and stared out the rain-streaked window, eyes sharp and hard. "No peace for ghosts," he muttered, voice gravelly. The past chased him relentlessly, a hunter never satisfied. Outside the city moved on oblivious, but Victor knew the storm wasn't over. He tapped ash from his cigarette, the weight of choices past pressing down. "The price of silence," he whispered, "is a debt paid in blood." The rain washed the streets, but couldn't cleanse the soul. Lisa Grant stood beneath the flickering streetlight outside the precinct, the chill seeping through her coat. Her phone buzzed. Another case, another name lost to the shadows. She thought of Mason, of Anna, of the scars they left behind. The city didn't forgive. It just forgot, swallowing stories whole. But Lisa was different now. No more silence, she vowed, breath visible in the cold air. Her gaze sharpened as she pocketed the phone and turned back inside. The fight was far from over. Somewhere in the dark, enemies waited, but so did warriors. She was ready. The city might break them, but it wouldn't silence them all. Anna walked through Mason's old neighborhood, the streets quieter now, but heavy with memories. Children played beneath cracked street lamps, unaware of the battles fought in their shadows. She paused at a faded mural, Mason's face painted larger than life, a tribute and a warning. Her fingers brushed the chipped paint. "There's no retirement plan for ghosts," she whispered, voice steady, eyes hard. The city's heartbeat thrummed beneath her feet, relentless, unforgiving. Anna's silhouette melted into the dawn mist, a warrior still standing. The story wasn't over. It had only just begun. The city's heartbeat slowed beneath the early morning haze. Anna stood alone in a forgotten park, the ground littered with fallen leaves damp from overnight rain. Her breath rose in quiet clouds, mingling with the cold air. In her hand, Mason's battered watch ticked faintly, a fragile link to a past marked by blood and silence. She traced the cracked glass, memories flashing behind her steady gaze. A child's laughter echoed distantly, a fragile reminder of innocence untouched by shadows. Anna whispered to the empty air, "There's no peace for those who fight ghosts." Her eyes scanned the horizon, where city towers sliced into the dawn, bright yet unforgiving. She tucked the watch into her coat pocket and turned, footsteps soft on wet earth. The story was etched into her bones, a silent promise burned deep within. The ghosts of the past would follow, but so would the fire she carried. Detective Carter sat at his cluttered desk, the weight of the case still pressing heavy in his bones. The room was silent, except for the low hum of a failing heater. He flipped through Mason's file one last time, finger tracing the edges of photos stained by time and grief. "Justice," he muttered, voice rough, "isn't always about the law." His eyes lingered on a faded note Anna had slipped under his door. A final plea for truth. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping the window in steady rhythm. Carter leaned back, the ache of countless battles worn into his frame. The city would move on, but he would carry the scars. And his voice barely a whisper. "Sometimes the price of silence is all we have left." The room darkened as the storm grew louder, his silhouette framed by flickering streetlights. Alone, but unbroken. Victor Russo stood by the edge of the harbor, fog rolling in thick and cold over the water. The city lights blurred into a ghostly glow, reflecting off the choppy waves. His hands were deep in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the horizon as if searching for redemption or damnation. He lit a cigarette, the flare briefly illuminating a face carved by years of violence and regret. "There's no retirement plan for ghosts," he murmured, voice heavy with bitter truth. The smoke curled and vanished into the mist. Behind him, the distant sound of a ship's horn echoed, a lonely call through the darkness. Victor took a slow breath, the weight of his choices settling deeper. The storm had passed, but the calm was uneasy. Ghosts didn't rest, they waited. Lisa Grant stepped out into the quiet street, the rain now a light drizzle, washing the city clean of its secrets for a moment. She pulled her coat tighter, eyes sharp and alert beneath the hood. The night had changed her, once naive, now hardened by truth and loss. Her phone buzzed with new cases, new names, new ghosts to chase. She looked up at the flickering street lamp and smiled faintly. "This city doesn't break everyone," she whispered. "Not all ghosts are lost." With steady steps, Lisa vanished into the early morning mist, ready for whatever came next. Fight for justice wasn't over. It had only found new warriors. The last light faded behind the city skyline as Anna stood on a rooftop once more, the wind tugging at her coat. She pulled Mason's watch from her pocket and held it against her chest, voice low and steady. "There's no retirement plan for ghosts." The words hung heavy in the air, echoing in the empty space around her. She looked out over the endless city, a battlefield of shadows and light, pain and hope. Her silhouette merged with the coming night, a warrior etched in silence. The ghosts followed, but so did she. The story was far from over. It was only beginning anew. The city breathed on beneath her, alive and unforgiving. And Anna walked into the dark, ready for whatever waited next.